Hey, good morning, all, or happy lunchtime for my friends in South Downs and others of you living in the future. And welcome to Kalbardr's Corner for this special Castle Wars edition of Coffee with Kalbardr. I am Lord Kalbardr Geiler, Companion of the Meridian Cross, Companion of the Argent Comet, Companion of the Argent Lamp, Companion of the Falcon's Faith, and Reaper, coming to you live from the Barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridies. And today, for this special episode, I'm joined by Maestro Ximon Martillo de Cordoba. Dang it, I almost had it. Master Ximon, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah. Long-time lurker, first-time caller. Yeah, I'm Ximon Martillo de Cordoba, and I'm in South Downs. I'm in Meridies. Been playing for like a long time. Anyway, in the SCA. And my persona in the SCA is Spanish, and I'm also a master. I'm a member of the Order of the Pelican, and just a general all-around kind of like cowboyish, floating kind of guy in my barony in the SCA. So
you are a getter it done kind of person, which is why you were on this episode, and we'll get into that.
I get semi-drunk people to actually help me do my job, which is really cool. That's my pure superpower. We can talk about
that. That's an important skill to have in the SCA.
Yes.
All right. So as always, since today's show is coffee themed, today's coffee of choice for me is the Eye Opener blend by New England Coffee in my lovely cat-finated cup. Master Ximon, what are you drinking today?
Today I am, since it's Sunday and it's kind of a semi-lazy day, I am drinking Cafe Verona from Starbucks with a little bit of peppermint mocha creamer in it, and coffee is the stuff of life.
That is the truth right there.
And made in a mug that was made for me very kindly from someone I used to know.
That's that's one thing I need to do. I need to get a couple period coffee mugs for the show. So if anybody out there wants to sponsor an episode of Coffee with Kalbardr and send me a fancy period mug, I will happily accept it. Also, there's a comment up there that I will go ahead and address this now. I was told that I need to update so I updated my introduction today because I was just in court, which is why I'm dressed all fancy. Ordinarily, I'm not for this show. But I did just receive an award from South Downs, the Order of the Falcon's Faith, and I am super appreciative to Their Excellency South Downs for that.
And he so deserves that. He deserves
it means a ton, and I'm trying not to think about it too much so that I can get through this stream. But I also have told that I've been leaving out that I am also the baronial onesie champion for South Downs and have been since last Castle Wars. And because we did not get to have a new competition this year, I am going to retain my title for another year. And Julian, if you're watching, you're still the first loser, dear. I'm sorry. First loser. Julian and I have a long-standing feud about this onesie thing now. So I'll post pictures on the channel later of me and my onesie for those of you watching. Okay. All of that ridiculousness being said, I think let's get into today's topic. Generally, for those sort of new to this, because I'm sure I'll have some new viewers, this show has always been just a way for me to talk about a topic, and it's those sort of shower thoughts you get, the thing that's bugging you. I've talked about fealty, power imbalance in the SCA. I've talked about killing them with kindness. So this one came up after the last South Downs business meeting, actually, and it's burnout. And the idea of burnout in the SCA, it sort of has a bunch of different connotations, but we're all sort of catching that point right now. We've all been in lockdown for, 17 years now, it seems.
God, I don't know. I didn't have this much facial hair when I started. I think I was 12. I'm not sure.
I had more. I mean, mine's going away. I don't know. But so we're all sort of reaching that point of just sick and tired of doing this from this virtual format. So we have a whole new thing to do. But 55 years in the SCA, there's always that idea of burnout. We sort of all talk about it, but I don't know it's ever been addressed. And everybody sort of has opinions about it. But I wanted to kind of talk about it, and so I have opinions. But I'm not new to the SCA, but I'm new. I'm new compared to some, of the older people around, Master Ximon. So I
get off my lawn.
I played for about 4 years, and then took a few years off, 10 actually, and then we've been back for a year, and then since COVID. So my opinions are going to be a little different than somebody who's been playing longer, especially somebody who's a Pelican and has done service their entire career. So that's really, I wanted to have somebody else on this show because I think having those opinions are going to be interesting. So I guess let's talk about what burnout is first. So Ximon, from your experience, what is burnout within the SCA? Let's talk about kind of sort of pre-COVID first, and then we'll sort of address COVID stuff.
It's my opinion what burnout is when I have to really kind of stop and think about it, because when you asked me to come on the show, I was trying to mull some stuff over, and burnout is that feeling that you have that it's manifested, at least internally, by a lack of energy for wanting to do the things that you feel you want to do, or that you feel you should want to do. But you don't really want to do it. You feel stressed, you feel tired. I mean, it's and at some point it's kind of just like a part of that element, getting into the little bit of a negative side for that, I hate to say, is you feel like you're taken advantage, you're being taken for granted.
Right.
That's sometimes that comes like that. But burnout as a whole, it's kind of like, you feel emotionally drained and emotionally and physically tired. So that's what burnout is to me, not just in the SCA, but in any other endeavor that I want to do that isn't work. And you can get burnout from work too, but I happen to really love my job mundanely, but we won't go there. So that's an element to me. That's what burnout is. Now and then I started thinking more about it. And there's different stages, or there's different kinds of burnout. There's like there's kind of like I want to do, like I want to do something, and I just I've done it every year, and then I'm kind of like expected to do it. Like when there was a time when I came from the West, and shout out to my Katrina Yarborough, one of my West Kingdom.
We have mutual friends apparently. I didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Wow, that's cool. Small world.
Yeah, Katrina and I play board games about once a week. Like, her and Edmund are awesome people. They're great. But anyway, so it's kind of like every year, we would do around Memorial Day, we'd go to May Coronet, and it was like that every year. We'd go and camp, we'd go and do stuff, we'd go and spend the 3 days, everything like that. And there were a couple of years where it's kind of like, I just want to barbecue and drink some beer and not have to pack up and go anywhere. So that's a kind of a burnout, actually. Kind of like, but. And then there's the one where it's like Ximon will take care of it, or Cal will take care of it, and then you're kind of like, and then you have this impression that people are gonna, like, they're really depending upon you. That's the other element of that. And but they're also like taking you for granted. Cal will take care of that, no problem, whatever. And you feel like that inside. And people may not be actually saying that or actually doing that, but you feel like that inside. And then it be a labor of love becomes a chore. Right. So there's a couple things there to unpack, and let's separate a couple of those topics out, because I think you hit 3 really great points that I want to address. So the first thing that I heard was the emotional versus physical, right?
Yeah.
So I think physical burnout, whatever, we all get tired. Long, hard days of fighting, long, hard days of working. Tired is tired, right? I think physical tired is easy to deal with. Take a nap, grab a drink, whatever. That's easy. The emotional tired is a much harder thing to address, I think.
It is.
That's the biggest one for me, especially right now. So like right now, other than some lack of sleep occasionally from long nights doing stream prep or whatever, there's not a whole lot of physical burnout. I mean, I'm tired of sitting in this office. I'm tired of not fighting. I'm tired of not doing physical things, admittedly. But emotionally, there's some burnout, right? And I think that's the biggest one for me. So then you hit on right at the end there is the expectations and what people expect out of you, and when you get into a role, you sort of like get stuck in that. I think that's I know a lot of people won't take a deputy office, or won't take a kingdom level office, or won't sort of take a role, because then there's an expectation. Or you get the idea of you get stuck in a role.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it's a perceived expectation. Let's be clear about that. If I might say, it's a perceived expectation by the person feeling burnout. So whether or not that is true, that it actually is being taken advantage of, or taken for granted, is not necessarily the qualifier.
Right. No, that's true. That's true. And that's honestly who we are as people. Like, so our anxiety a lot of times, and I talk about this a lot on one of my other shows, is the anticipation and the anxiety of other people's expectations is the biggest part for me, especially, of what causes me to have anxiety or causes me to have any kind of nervousness or whatever. So, when I'm running a show for somebody else, like, I'm not nervous at all on camera when I'm doing my shows. Mm-hmm. Because if I screw up my show, it's my show. It's whatever. Nobody cares, right? Nobody's gonna care that I messed up. But if I screw up, Outland's Royal Tea, or I screw up, Barony of Court, well, now I've screwed up somebody else's thing, right? They're not gonna mind either. They're just happy I'm doing something for them, and I know that logically, right? But the idea that it's somebody else's thing that I can mess up is even harder. Mm-hmm. So that's but it's all about that perceived attitude, perceived opinion that may or may not be accurate.
Yeah. And I think that somebody had said that that a lot of people are harder on themselves than they think that people are. Once again, I go back to the perceiving of that.
Right. So okay, so looking at pre-COVID, so looking at events, looking at the glorious day when we're all together again. We talk about. I was actually talking to Master Lorenzo in Zoom last night during the Rebel, because the topic came up about the stream. And his opinion. So there's I think there's actually two kinds of burnout, because I realized that his opinion of burnout wouldn't fix my problem, right? So when we sort of talk about his thing of the way he combats burnout is he just changes what he's doing. So if he gets burnout doing sewing, he switches to doing dancing. If he gets burnout doing dancing, he switches to doing, fill in the blank other thing that he does, because he does about a dozen. So he just sort of cycles his activities. I realized that won't work for me, and it won't work for a lot of people who do service. I think that's a very arts-focused burnout fighting technique, but it doesn't work for service, because a lot of service is very the same. Whether you're seneschal or herald, you're still doing a job. Whether you're doing court or you're doing you're still busy doing a thing. Yeah.
Service is a different task-oriented thing. Yes, go ahead.
So it's hard to cycle those things, right? So it's hard to. So admittedly, you could cycle from doing service to doing art. I guess that might help. But I realized that my problem is, and I think Dame Sabella is watching, and she's gonna go, yeah, Cal, do less things. I need to do less things, but I end up when I get burnt out, instead of switching things, I just add a thing, and I just keep adding things, which then just makes the burnout worse, because I have more things to do now. That's what was one of her first pieces of advice to me when I became her protege was, hey, Cal, do less things. And I'm like, yes, man, sorry. And then I kept doing more things, but
Yeah. So the thing about doing less things is that, and then, so deep down inside, I perceive that when you hear that phrase, you should do less things. People have told you that correctly?
A dozen times today, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if I ken you right, okay, you perceive that as doing less, which is not enough, which is not, I should do more, and if I'm doing less things, that less as in less than, not meeting expectations, not doing, it's got a negative connotation to it.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And that's not what that is. Doing less things is a good practical phrase for advice, in my opinion. And David Paradise, Lucian, I got you. I totally got you on that one. But the deal is that for doing less things, you need to keep in mind, in my opinion, is it's not doing less, but choosing what you do to accomplish the job. I've come to realize in the COVID thing that we've been in, that I've been in that I've kind of gone to the other way. I've been trying to do more arts type stuff, be more artistic or artisan like or whatever. But I realized that,
it's because you can't stab anybody right now. So
yeah, that too. But no, I've always wanted to do these. It's like I've been too busy stabbing people or other stuff, doing service stuff to really do any art stuff. But so it's been kind of good for me in a sense. But what I realized though is like there was a day, there literally was a day where I was like, man, this is cool. I could do this. I could do that. Hey man, I got this. I got that, and I know all you art types people out there are like, man, I could do, yeah, I want to do, and then you're like, you know, yeah, and then what works for me is that, um, is I find that I need to be the task oriented. I need to have a goal. I need to finish. Everything that I've been working on. Like right now, I'm in a project where I'm doing Inca weaving and I'm creating pieces. And my goal, first off, I call it a goal. My goal is to accomplish this X thing. Right. And stay with me here because it's going to take a second here. I apologize. But I see myself as I want to complete this project and I need to do this to get a sense of satisfaction. There are other projects waiting out there, but then I have to realize, are they important? Are they doing it? All stuff like that. And so that can go with service too. It's like, what is your forte for doing service? And you kind of have to sort of choose it at some point because if you try to fill that, if you try to fill that void with more, it's just like, trying to catch water in your hand, man. It's just going to slip out. You know what I'm saying?
I think at that point, you have to, and there's been definitely a couple of comments that resonated. The fear of if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. And I have said that, I will admit it a dozen or more times. But it's honestly, but I've also experienced if I don't do a thing, it doesn't get done. But to address what you just mentioned there, I think it becomes the quality versus quantity. And that's
right.
that I've been told, and you're absolutely correct. I think that's the best way to handle from the service perspective, at least. Like I said, it's hard to do it from art because your art quality can be equivalent across multiple projects. It's a matter of then what thing you want to do most. When you're looking at service, you have to. Sabella always tells me to do consecutive, not concurrent.
Right.
Do each one thing. So you want to do a dozen things, cool. Do a dozen things, but do one and then do the next and do the next. Right. And that's harder to do for me. I know my biggest thing, and the reason I stay busy, is because I am also very task oriented, very goal oriented. I like check boxes. I like being able to make a list and go, oh look, done. I literally have a whiteboard in my living room that I put all my stuff on every morning that I'm going to do. Like, so mundanely, I'm also a project manager, and I'm a scrum master, and so I have a daily scrum meeting with myself of okay, what are my tasks for today? What are my roadblocks? What are my reliances? Like I go through that whole system every morning in my pajamas in the living room. But it's because I like crossing the thing off. So when I run out of things to do at midday, I'm like, all right, got to find a new thing to do. I got to find a new task. Cool. But then I end up adding a task, and then I add a task, or I start volunteering for tasks, trying to find a new thing to do. And then it seems to be the thing that happens to me the most is all of them come to fruition at the same time.
And if that works, it works. To be honest with you, you have from what you just told me, you have all the skills in order to keep yourself from feeling overwhelmed.
Right.
You have all the skills for that. You do that for a living. You're a project manager.
I do. And
I married the project manager. I'm not the project manager, but I have to, and along with, being the task oriented and the goal oriented, there's another component that I think will also keep you as far as for service. And it does, it works for me in a certain sense. When I get through completing that task, do I feel a sense of accomplishment?
Right.
If you've auto-credited an event, if you have run contests, you have, or competitions or tournaments or whatever, take a second to when you've done all that stuff, take a second to thank yourself. And seriously, it's great if other people thank you, which is really cool. That's we're all human. We all want that. We all want validation. We all want that from our fellow man. But if you as a person don't give that to yourself, truly give that to yourself. I know I sound kind of woo, but seriously, if you don't give that to yourself, it's you're going to be on that destructive path of always trying to prove yourself to other people, because that's what your actions will end up being. Well,
I think it's because we all want that validation, and whereas I'm not. I think this is something that's talked about a lot. Is I'm not seeking the cookie. I don't I don't necessarily mind I don't want the awards, right? So like I have a goal. I think, and this is something that I think needs to talk about. I have a goal. Yes, I want to be a peer. I have plans to be a peer one day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And notice I said peer, and I've talked about this before of Pelican versus Knight versus Laurel. I want to be a peer. I desire to have peer-like qualities, right? That's the goal for me. So I'm doing things, in my opinion, to further me towards that goal. Having conversations like this, things I do with Sir Helga on my other shows, doing more activities like it's all things building those skills. But you're right. I think one of those skills is that delegation that people are talking about in the comments, and sort of the knowing which battles to fight, I think is another thing too.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to tilt at all the windmills. And tilting at less windmills is a helpful thing, because then you can tilt at the ones better.
Yeah. I think I'd like to be able to, I'm seeing a bunch of comments here at the same time. I'm one of these people who are like, I can't look at TV and do stuff at the same time. My wife, she'll like look at TV and everything else, and oh my God, she creates awesome embroidery, and I'm like that. God could be standing next to the TV, and I would ask God to move away, because I can't see the show. But I think with all those, I'm looking at the comments on there about changing the subject a little bit. I apologize. People are talking about like, if I don't do it, that old chestnut about if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. And to be quite honest with you guys, don't do it.
Right.
If you look at it, if you can do it and you're not stretched out, don't do it. There should always be somebody. Think about it. There should always be somebody to basically help you get it done, or help the situation get it done. If you feel like it won't get done if you're not there, it's kind of like that, like what Kyle's saying. It's like, oh man, I gotta whatever, and that falls back into the being taken for granted sort of thing. Are you being taken for granted? Are you just perceiving that if you don't do it, it's not going to get done? Or what's even worse, it's not going to get done right.
Right. Yeah. So I think those are actually two things. Not getting done is one thing, because there are things that we know. So if the court herald, so if their majesties are having court, they're actually having court, and the court herald just doesn't show up, court's still going to happen.
Yeah.
They'll find another herald, right? So if you're the herald and you have an issue, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But then but it will be done right, or be done the best, and I think that's my problem. Is I know if I don't do a thing, it's gonna get done. But will it be done as good as I could have done it?
Yeah.
And that's admittedly, that's my ego talking. I will completely admit that I can do it better than others.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's kind of like, and then the other variant of it is that, is it, it's just easier if I just do it. try to get somebody to help me do it, but that belies a bigger problem, actually. And it's really something that, I think you might want to, if you haven't already done a show about that, I apologize. I haven't I kept up with it. But that belies a bigger problem, is how do we get more people to pitch in when it needs to be done? We do the autocrat, or I'm sorry, event steward, and then there's the co-event steward, or there's somebody who, that they help out. But I mean, how do we, and that's really, I think, the crux of one of our problems. How do we get people to come into, to take the job of the seneschal, or take the job of the exchequer, which, I readily admit I'm not good with numbers. Once again, I married the brains of the outfit right there. So
I mean, that's the wife's job. Yeah.
I am a pro at spending money. No problem at all.
Right.
But anyway, so
that's about it.
So that is one of those things where if you can't find somebody to do it, or if you don't think that somebody's going to do it right, or something else like that, that's okay to address the immediate situation. If it doesn't get done, then I should do it. And you have to be judicious about thinking about, whether or not it's just, is it just you thinking about that, or if it actually is like that. But really, we as a whole need to, this would be, I think, probably be a good topic for a show, is how do we get people to, how do we do the mentorship? How do we do how do we bring in other people to do what we want to do, so that way we can spread the love,
right.
that kind of thing.
Which
So
I
go ahead.
I think there's two things to address, and you're correct. I think I think both recruiting and also encouraging to do tasks. And I'll figure out a better way to phrase that. But I think that's a good topic for a future show.
Mm-hmm.
But it does address that, because I think the problem is we have people that are burnt out, and we saw it right now. So
yeah,
Castle Wars happened this weekend, right?
Yeah.
A few weeks ago when we were all discussing Castle Wars, the general opinion was, ugh, I don't want.
No, I remember. Yeah, I remember that meeting. Yeah.
And that's that. First of all, that's sad. Nobody was excited about Castle Wars, because Castle Wars should be amazing. And I think there's two reasons for that. One, we all want to go to actual Castle Wars and actually beat on each other and have the campfires and have the onesie party. We want Castle Wars, right? Everybody wear your masks. I want to go to Castle Wars next year. Damn it.
Yeah, really.
So I think that's one part that's causing burnout currently, right? But then there's also the people who are just busy. So South Downs did an amazing job. So my local group Osprey has been quiet. We've had one meeting since COVID. We basically all sort of just shut down, which has been good, because I think a lot of them were burnt out on the SCA. In general, they've been sort of doing the motions. They've been holding the offices. They've been literally trading hats off. All right, you're the Herald this week. All right, you're the Seneschal this week, right? So the reports are getting done, but like it's not improving. So they all decided to take some time off. So South Downs did the exact opposite of that. They ramped into high gear during COVID. They're still having weekly meetings. They're still having their activities. They switched some activities. They added some stuff. They've still had all their event stuff going on and more.
Yeah.
And now I think it's all suffering for that. We're all sort of at the I'm good. I'm going to
go. And before you came to the Barony, I've been in this Barony. It's been 10 years. I've been in the Barony for like 10 years, and this is just that cycle, like it is with a lot of groups. There are these key people who always do the jobs, and not, you don't have, either by not having enough of a pool of people, or these are the people that or the people who don't. And let's be honest here, you have people who are like, they either for one reason or another, because they don't feel worthy of being able to step in to help out, or worthy of being able to take over the job or whatever. And then there are people, they're the same people who run the events, who do all this stuff all the time, everything else. I've seen it all these years. I mean, the Castle Wars back when we were at Tilbasovki, it was the same crew. It was the same crew that did that, and the same crew that helped clean up. It was the same crew that all put that together, and it's the burnout comes. The burnout comes.
Which, admittedly, there's some good from having the same crew doing a thing, because then you sort of have you get a machine going. So like Gaddalop's a good example. So for those of you, Osprey, one of their big events is Gaddalop every year down at Fort Gaines. You could literally take Gaddalop. We could host Gaddalop tomorrow with zero planning, and it would be executed the exact same way.
Yeah.
That group has done it for so many years.
Yeah.
We know what boards go where. We know what tents go where. We know how the tent goes up. It honestly wouldn't matter who showed up. As long as at least one of the people in that team was there, they could select and direct and make it happen.
Yeah.
So there's some benefit to that, but then it leads to everybody's burnout when they want to do it, and it no longer is fun. I think that's the big.
Yeah, and also the good side effect to that is, and what kind of keeps the burnout away, is you guys develop a camaraderie. It's like you're the team. Years ago when I helped co-autocrat, Castle Wars, it was like, or when I do an event, I get team meetings. I do team. I always talk team. I don't talk about staff. I don't talk about whatever. Everybody's a part of the team. You're a team person. So I like that.
Well, yeah, and that's actually an interesting point, because staff implies in charge versus in charge in a group, versus team implies the group together. And that's a very agile for those who project manage. That's a very agile.
I really try to be positive whenever it's something. Whenever to be quite honest with you, I want to try to be positive when I want somebody to do stuff for me. It just is. I mean, nobody's getting paid. Nobody's doing this stuff. Nobody's getting any. I'm not getting my weekly ration of beer or whiskey or anything like that. So no grog, nothing like that.
We should fix that, man. We need a weekly ration. That's what we need. All right, Your Excellency. I know you're watching out there. Master Ximon and I need our weekly supply of grog. Start sending it out. Come on.
And I'll even take Dr. Pepper. I mean,
just something at this point would be nice.
At something at this point, I'm cool with that. So I'll start a GoFundMe in another 5 minutes here.
There you go. Neva actually, Her Excellency Neva brings up a good point in the comments here about SCA during COVID time, and I'll throw it on the screen. She says she's thinking of it as a relay race. That when she's tired to yeet, and I love her use of yeet that task to someone else who's done taking a breather. So yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that's actually a lot of what happened with Castle Wars. So I've had so I was very busy for a lot of months there doing stuff, and I took I think I took about a month off. For those who are sort of normal watchers of my stream, you notice that I've been absent lately, mostly because we've had 2 hurricanes, and I've been dealing with post-hurricane stuff and that sort of thing, and just my own burnout.
Yeah.
And then when Castle Wars popped up, I was like, oh, cool, I can help with these things. Like, it sort of revitalized me because I saw the burnout. And for some reason, that kicked me back into gear of, I want to do the thing. So I helped out with stuff. And I think, so I think that was helpful. At least I think Castle Wars ran really well, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. I know I've had a blast this weekend just playing Tech Guru. But I think that's a good point, is we need to find that team as a whole and sort of take turns pushing the cart, I guess.
Well, and here's the other thing too, is one of the really great things that Her Excellency, here's my shout out to her. I'm not going to wait for Word Fame Wednesday or whatever, but Her Excellency and concurrently, pretty much everybody else in the barony is really been very helpful and very gracious in saying, look, if you need to back away, if you need, then back away for what you need to do. I think also the responsibility, if I need to back away for something, like for instance, I didn't do anything in Castle Wars because I have a home improvement project that I had to work on that had to get done this week. And matter of fact, after this, I'm going back to the home improvement project.
Right.
But I also took time out privately, not in front of everybody. I also took time privately to talk to, or to send a message to their excellencies, and also to Julian, that I apologize. I'm really not going to participate in Castle Wars this year. If there's something that I can try to do that, if that's the, I always like to offer. Well, I never want to say you can't have this. I want to say, well, I can't give you this, but I can give you this. You know what I'm saying? I got to quit putting my fingers in front of the camera. Okay. But if somebody gives you leave to be able to back away, then be courteous and say, hey, I really need to back away, and also ask for help. Like, I don't really think I can do this. Can I get some help? I mean, and it's not like that's not a sign of weakness. That's not a sign of weakness. That's a sign of knowing what you can do, knowing what you should do, and knowing what you can't do. And you don't want to ever promise to do something that you ultimately fail, which makes you feel even worse, which adds to all of that stress.
Right.
When I just as a quickie in the West years ago, and those of my Western friends who know this, whenever I would join a guard, and what would happen is that the prince, the principality, prince and princess, they would come and ask people to be on their guard. Mm-hmm. And they'd say, well, they would come up to me and Ximon, we would like to have you on our guard when we step up. That'd be great. And it's a great honor. It's awesome. It's really, really great. And with the exception of one time that I miscalculated, I would either tell them, I would love to be on your guard. I would like to do that. Thank you very much for inviting me. But there were times where I said, I apologize. I can't commit to that. And they'd look at me like, well, if you can kind of show up. And no, there is no kind of showing up for me. There is, I either do it or I don't. And I'd rather turn you down than let you down.
Right. So all right. That's the quote of the day right there. I'd rather turn you down than let you down.
Yeah.
I like that. Also,
I'm already a schmo, so
I have to make a quick note. I've been hanging out with Westies entirely too much because you said in the West and I reached for my drink.
Dude. No. Let me say something here. Okay. A Westie is a cute little puppy. I know nobody in the West that is a cute little pup. Well, okay. But anyways, nobody in the West is a cute little puppy. So I call them Westerners. So I shouldn't say Westies. So I apologize if I said that. So
So regardless, I've been hanging out with him too much because literally you said in the West, and I reached for my drink, and I was like, "Oh God!" I see, and Katrina mentioned it in the comments as well. It's
Mm-hmm.
for those of you who don't know, that's
saw that
tradition, and Between Two Peers does as well. That if you say in the West or when I last reigned or when I was queen or king, that sort of thing, you have to drink, and it's kind of a tradition that I really take it on. So anywho, so yeah, so I that's a crazy good point, and I like that that concept of and for those watching who watch my show, and if you haven't watched some of my previous shows, so Sir Helga and I do a show called Unpack Your Shit, where we go through a book about some sort of self-help thing. And our last one we did was actually The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer, which I know Amanda Palmer is a bit of a controversial character, but the book is actually really good. And it leads to what you're just talking about, the idea of asking for help not being a weakness, or like having or being shameful or whatever. It's not. It's actually it's a more of a strength, I think, to ask for help or to admit that. I don't want to call it a failing, but to admit that failing. Say, hey, I can't do this, and knowing your own limits, I think, is important. And I think that's if we had to pick one thing, the one thing you could do to combat burnout overall, not just now, but in your career, in your whatever, is knowing when to say no, or knowing when to say no, or knowing how to say no. And if you can't do that, find someone who can help you learn to do it. And that's, like I said, that's something I did with Helga was knowing how to say no and knowing when to ask for help. Because we can't all do it. We can't all do all the things, even though we want to.
And I try to. I think a lot of people don't use that tactic of, well, I can't do this, but this is what I can do for you. Right. If you want to buy something from me, Cal, and I say, well, I'm out of this thing, but can I show this to you? Maybe you'd like this. And you never know, that may be satisfactory to you. Right. And to you, deep down, that says that, okay, he's not just like, yeah, no, I'm out. I can't sell it to you. Or, I don't have this thing anymore. See you later. Bye-bye. I got to move to the next customer or something like that. I always kind of think of it in that way.
Right.
But, when someone does that for me, it's like, well, I can't do this for you, but let me make this offer to do this for you or to give you this option. I think that even that, helps as far as in your interaction for people, especially if you're feeling like you're burnt out and you feel like people are taking you for granted. Well, I can't do this, but I can do this if you need me to do this, and I think people think that or may consider that like a really positive thing, that we do really want to do the job, not like we're just blowing you off,
Ooh, Raven just brought up a thing. So the idea of he spots burnout when he hears I have to.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. I have to show up to court. I have to go to the event. No, I want to go to court. I want to go to the event.
Mm-hmm.
If you think you have to do something in the SCA now, admittedly, there are a few things you have to do. You have to send your report in on time, or rather, I guess you need to send your report in on time. But you don't have to be the seneschal. You can quit. And that may mean that group. It may mean the group falls apart. It may mean the group gets sanctioned or whatever. But you don't have to do that. I think that's a really good point.
There, and also when you think about if you find yourself going, oh, I have to do this, then you really need to stop and take, like you did your scrum meeting. Part of your scrum meeting should be, if it isn't already, and part of deciding what you want to do as far as for what your peer has asked you to on your path for the Pelican or path for peerage is, do I really need to do this? How is this important? Is this a responsibility that I have committed to? Then if it is, then yes, you do have to do this. Suck it up. You got to do it.
Right.
If this is something like, oh man, I have to, whatever, and then you need to stop and think about that. Do you have to? Not just should, but do you have to do that? That's the dividing line right there.
Yeah, no, I never considered that until I saw it, and that's a great key point. So yeah. So there you go. Second quote of the day. If you think you have to, reevaluate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks to Raven for that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I've seen some really cool comments on there. This is really great. Yeah. I wish I whenever you're. Usually you're in the comments just blowing it up as well, and that's one of the reasons I invited you on because you've watched a lot of these coffee shows and you always have really great commentary. So
And honestly, I may start. So those of you watching, if you have an opinion out there or have a topic you want to talk about and want to join me on one of these, let me know. I think I might start doing these with guests. This is actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
My opinion's great, but others is, I mean, my opinion's pretty amazing. Don't get me wrong. It's, whatever. Others, but having this conversation is really nice. So
It's only second to your humility. That's
obviously. See, I am both amazing and humble. It's like I'm a total package.
I got to tell you, just as a quick aside, I was a bit nervous coming onto this. I mean, this isn't like the Oscars or anything like that, but I always get a little nervous when I have to do some sort of physical some sort of presentation kind of thing like this. But thank you very much for putting me at ease. It's really great. I'm having a great time, and I'm having a great time looking at the comments too. I really appreciate people's thoughtfulness and seeing these perspectives. There's so much just with this that it's kind of entering my mind. There's so much we can talk about, so many different aspects.
Right. Well, yeah, I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna go back and watch this or read the comments. And honestly, if something else pops up that we maybe want to address, like we've already talked to the one topic, I think maybe it's a follow-up show. There is one more comment, and I am running low on coffee, so we are almost at the end. But there's a comment I wanted to address because I think it's an important one about those specialized jobs. So the question is basically, how do we deal with things like Exchequer or IT where there's a very limited labor pool? So I know in the kingdom right now, there are very few of us that do tech stuff, at least that do it or that are willing to do it. I know Mistress Ellen, she's basically the backbone of the tech of this kingdom. Between her and Baroness Genevieve, Genevieve, they stay busy doing social media and tech stuff, and it kills them. I know they just don't stop. So how do we deal with that? So I think the answer from me is teaching. So like I know I could teach 100 people, and Ellen could teach 100 people how to run Zoom, or how to run a Zoom meeting, how to do breakout rooms. I'm sure if anybody out there wants to help with social media stuff, and you message Genevieve, she will gladly help teach you all the things about social media that you need to know. I may be throwing her under that bus, but I think that's a good point: is teach.
I think the other thing too, I had an idea when I was Seneschal of South Downs long ago and far away, years ago. One of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted the officers to write about their offices and things like that too. Now that we've got Zoom and stuff like that, I think I'd like to posit an idea that maybe officers like, okay, so let's just take Exchequer. Everybody's like, oh, or Reeve. I'm sorry, Reeve. I still talk in a Western tone, and I use Western stuff. I still have a hard time saying.
We call it Exchequer in Osprey too. I think the official term is actually Exchequer.
Yeah, I would presume so.
Yeah.
I think that would be, I think that you could have a Zoom class on what does the Exchequer do? I mean, and it doesn't have to be like the Exchequer for the kingdom. It can be an Exchequer for the kingdom, but it's also an Exchequer for a group, a small group or whatever, just to sort of demystify it. And then, along with calling out for it, like if you're even thinking about that you want to take a job, here's the Exchequer job. It's not that scary. Blah blah blah. We actually use calculators, or whatever.
We have computers now these days.
We got computers to do this stuff too. But I mean, for me, it's like Seneschal. I mean, when I did Seneschal, a lot of that was like I was Seneschal for a principality, and we had because it's a bigger geographic region, we have more people that could do that. But I think part of it is that people see these offices and like, I don't know if I could do that. And if you demystify it and show it to people, and then you never know, you might catch somebody like, are you interested in trying to take a look at this? I mean, there's no strings attached. I'm not going to like, put you in handcuffs and tie you to the desk. Or at least that's not legal in this state. But that's beside the point.
Right.
I think that would be probably the answer, along with what you're saying. What your solution was too.
So that's actually something I'm working on with the Herald's office right now. So I'm also the Lantern Herald for Meridiers, which means I'm in charge of education for. Let me correct that. I'm responsible for education within the Herald community within Meridiers. And one of my projects has been updating our administrative handbook, and then also the sort of secondary to that is to build out a orientation for new heralds, because I think that's something we've been missing out on is our new heralds don't really know their job. So they're becoming heralds, and they see the heralds doing herald stuff, but they don't really know what a herald does for a local group.
Yeah,
thanks. Because what you see, the Her Ladyship Sarah doing for court, And what Lucy does for court is not what the herald does. That is a aspect of being a herald, but it's not the totality of the herald's job.
And that was one of the things that confused me when I got to Meridies from the West, because the West has the heralds. They were the herald's office, and there were different ones that were, but they didn't have names for the different divisions of the herald's office, So that was
that's something Meridies does well.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it more. I know at least Alciora has a mic, like a lantern equivalent, and I'm pretty sure Midrealm does too, because I've been contacted by them. I think it's Midrealm or Aiden, one of the two, one of the northern folks. But yeah, so it's a more common thing. I think it helps our heraldic community branch out more. But I think that same mentality of let's start building some classes. And by the way, I'll throw myself under that bus. I will help teach anybody how to do that, because like I do these things via StreamYard, recording things. I think there's plenty of us that do this sort of thing. Instead of focusing on doing classes in person, and I'm using in person in quotes like via Zoom, we can pre-record these classes. We can do a 30-minute how to be an Exchequer, how to be a Seneschal, and put it up on a YouTube somewhere, so it's just available, right? And then once a year we go back and evaluate it, update it. It's a thing we can do.
Yeah.
That doesn't help the burnout, but it does help us have more people be less scared of these jobs, which can then help with the burnout. Because if somebody like you, who's been Seneschal, a dozen times and been this and that a dozen times, doesn't have to be Seneschal again, that leads to you not being burnout, which can then means you can then inspire other people to do more. Because I think an important thing for me, and this is sort of maybe off topic, is the peers of our kingdom. The peers of our kingdom should serve not only as the guiding force, but as the inspiration. And peers is sort of the broad term of both our royals and our bestowed. So a lot of times our peers end up doing a lot of the work because they're the only ones that can do it or know how to do it, or at least that's the perception. And if you guys, as the peerage, can inspire others to do that, I think that actually can help combat the burnout as well, because then you guys are having fun, and then can help those of us that are not peers, that are newer or whatever, have fun and actually do the job.
And that really is job number one for a peer. And that got taught to me. That was one of the best pieces of advice. And that's my piece of advice that when someone goes into vigil, that's usually one of my pieces of advice, other than never pass a chance to go to the bathroom.
I like that. I'll remember that.
As you get older, it becomes that way. Yes. But your job isn't to do more once you become a peer. Your job is to inspire people to do what you do.
Right.
That really is. That's your job as a peer. And if you're doing it right, people do get inspired to do what you do, and then they do it, and they do it well. That right there is, I could go off on that.
That's a great point. So for those out there watching, whether you be royal or bestowed, inspire. Talk about your job, and if you want to teach a class on that job, reach out to me. Reach out to Stella. Stella is becoming the new rum provost for South Downs, and her ladyship Alessandra are organizing classes. So if you want to teach classes for South Downs or any other group, reach out to those people and teach those classes. Let's get those out there, and let's start inspiring people to do these jobs.
Hey, idea real quick. I mean, we've had these online Zoom like collegiums, things like that. What if we have one for officers of the organization,
like a full administrative?
Yeah, like, okay, here's the room where we talk about Seneschal stuff. Here's the room where we talk about Exchequer, Herald, whatever. What about the Baron and Baroness? We've got tons of Baron and Baronesses in here, or just a thought.
No, that's a good point. And yeah, so I know we did it in Osprey. We had a class for their Excellencies Osprey. They taught a demystifying the territorial baronage class, and we had our other. I also coupled it with a demystifying the peerages class. So I had one of each of the peerages, and then the territorial baron and baroness there. The only thing we were missing was a royal peer. Oh no, we had a duchess as well. So we sort of talked about the different roles from the peerage level, at least, including the baron and baroness. But yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I think we can do two things, and I'm not volunteering, but I'll gladly help somebody. Have both some pre-recorded classes available, like on YouTube, but also have a sort of a roundtable available person every hour to talk about those different jobs. That's a neat idea. All right, so there's two comments I want to address, and then I think we are done because I am almost out of coffee. So Devin. Song, I think. No, Min. Yes, I got it. Okay. Names. She asked, let me find it. People talk. There it is. So one thing she has to deal with is having to prove having to prove herself. For instance, example, as a bard, and saying no is hard when bardic opportunity is presented. I think that's a really interesting question, because especially with things like that, where there may be limited opportunity to excel or to show yourself, how do you prove that? And I think my only thought for that would be, just if you can do it, but do it well. And if you can't do it well, don't do it. But that's actually antithetical to my normal approach, which is perfect getting in the way of good, or perfect getting in the way of done.
Yeah.
So that's I don't know. So that's sort of hard, because I would personally rather do something than not do it, even if I can't do it perfectly.
Well, but take into account that, and this is what I tell people also when they become a peer, or when they start to become a peer, is, when you become a peer, people will judge you, rightly or wrongly, but they'll judge you. They think that you as a peer should be X, Y, and Z, and then the other people will be you A, B, and C. And once you understand that, then that takes the power of them over you out of the picture.
Right.
Because there are people who are like, I'm lazy or whatever, they think of, whatever they think about me. And there are people who think like the world of me, which is really cool. And but I realize that that's their perspective. And once so for Devin right there, if somebody's going to give you grief because you don't want to do something right now, and you don't think that, if you're constantly feeling like you have to prove yourself because people are asking you to prove it to them that you are who you are, then how productive is that? I mean, that's a toxic environment, I believe.
Whoa. Throwing the buzzword. All right. No, I think you're right. I think we have to, and I think that's an emotional thing, because there is likely not actually, well, if there is an expectation of anybody, it's wrong. And because this is a volunteer organization, this is supposed to be a fun game. We always talk about the dream and the game, and we call it that, but then it turns into the political hobby club, and instead of being a fun thing that we do.
Right.
I want to put my garb on. When I put my chains on, when I put my hat on, this is cool to me. I love this. I pick my sword and shield up. I'm like, yeah, I'm a cool thing. I want to fight something. That's exciting to me. Yeah. But if I start thinking about, oh yeah, but I got to send in my Herald report next week, and I got to do this, and that's not the fun part. Like, we got to remember the fun parts, right? So if somebody's expecting you to do X, Y, or Z, remember the fun parts, man. That's the best thing.
Yeah, that makes the adulting in the SCA more bearable, a lot more bearable.
Because we have to do it. We have to send the reports. We've got to record the classes. We have to do these things because we are a business, right? And there's a whole board of people that are making sure we stay a business. We need to help them do our parts to make sure we do all the right little things to make sure we're staying a business. But then we also have to remember it's supposed to be fun. And if we have a business but it's not fun, why do we have the business, right?
Yep.
We can let the business go. We can still have fun without the business.
Yeah.
Business helps, but we don't need it.
Right.
So remember that balance needs to be fun, not business. Let the board handle the business. We help them like we need to. Let them handle that. That is president as SCA.org's problem, not mine.
Yeah.
So there's one other point, and then we're gonna close this out. So Tony brings up, I'm sorry, Genevieve. I bet that's Genevieve. I like Helga. I'm terrible at names, but
Genevieve is awesome. She is a wonderful lady, and she introduced me to a PIMS cup.
Oh,
love that lady.
Yep. All right. So the idea about virtual classes right now, especially because we can go to classes outside of Kingdom and outside of even the country. I know there was one weekend I went to classes in 3 different kingdoms on 2 different continents, and that was a ton of fun. It was literally like midnight here, but 8 o'clock in the morning in Locock. But it was a great weekend. However, I want to bring up a point in that. So virtual SCA is breaking down some of those barriers. But we have to remember there's also the interkingdom anthropology thing. That what happens in Meridies is different than what happens in the West. And the way we do Exchequer or martial stuff is different than the West. There are some similarities. There are some sort of society level rules for it.
Right.
But not only some of our rules may be different, some of our traditions may be different.
Yeah.
So make sure, so a bit of advice, but if we do start teaching these classes, start doing more of that, sort of spreading that knowledge. If you take a class from somebody in the West, remember that your mileage may vary.
Yeah. Well, and you need to make it, either encompassing, you would solve that problem by either making it specific to the kingdom itself, or you would make it where you end up doing generalities for the office itself, society-wide. Or what's even better is if you have an example of 3 different kingdoms in that office.
Oh, sure. Oh,
just pull a number, but
bring in find 3 or 4 different exchequers from different kingdoms and sort of compare the 2 or whatever.
This is how we do it, or this is what we don't have, or this is what we have. Stuff like that. Because I definitely do seneschal. My style of being a seneschal, for those who remembered me doing seneschal in the barony, was at times rather seat of the pants. I mean, but I always had, my job was to make sure that, we didn't get in trouble. That was pretty much it. But there are other people who handle it different ways. So
making sure the wheels stay on the cart at that point that's realistically your job. So, all right, we are almost at an hour, and
wow,
yeah, I am empty. So drain your cup there, Ximon. There you go. So Ximon, this has been amazing. Thank you for doing this for me. I know you're a busy weekend, so I appreciate you taking the time out.
No, it's fine. I'm glad I could.
Those of you in the comments, thank you for everything. Thank you to Their Excellencies South Downs for allowing me to promote this into the event and for letting me be part of Castle Wars and part of the Barony in general. And I appreciate you guys all out there, and hugs and loves and all the things. So as always, like, follow, subscribe, please. So if we're talking about people wanting recognition and needing recognition, one of the things that you can do for all the people doing YouTube stuff, whether it's me or Ask the Knights Live or Between Two Peers, just plugging a couple of my favorite channels there, go like them, go follow them on Facebook, subscribe to their YouTube channels. It helps us a ton. And I will say this, a bit of a personal plug for me. As of this past Thursday, I hit 100 subscribers on YouTube.
Yay!
So I'll be doing a big official announcement about that on Monday when I relaunch my Patreon for this channel. But super happy about that. So thank you all for watching. Thank you for joining us. This has been Kalbardr and Ximon in Kalbardr's Corner. Thanks, everybody.